Hey folks, welcome to week 7 of GID 109, Intro to Web Design. How is everybody? Hope you're doing good. All right, we got a lot of stuff to cover this week, so let's take a look at it. So we'll go over here to our modules, and we'll head down to week 7, which is where we're at. Okay, so this week we are still, of course, working on Project 1, a real-life redesign. But the main thing today, too, is that this week we are finishing up our historical speculative paper and digital poster. The final part 3, which is your presentation of findings, is due at the end of this week. So you'll be wrapping that up this week and turning it in. And simultaneously, you're also turning in deliverable number 2 for Project 1. So we're going to go over what all of those are again, just to make sure everybody's on the same page. Also, this week, we are sort of having time to get some feedback on the stuff that you are working on. So even though I know you're turning in the final phase of the historical speculative paper, deliverable 2 for Project 1 as well. You can certainly check in with me this week, either via our Zoom online office hours or by email, and get some feedback on what you're working on before you turn it in, right? It's always better to get a little bit of sort of draft feedback before you turn in your final version of a deliverable. So take some time this week to get some feedback. Also, get some feedback from your classmates too. At this point, you should be able to connect with some of your classmates via Blackboard. You may know some of them from other classes. Show them the stuff you're working on. Get some feedback. Hey, what do you guys think? Give me some critique. So certainly take advantage of the fact that we are together in a class here, and try not to work alone in a bubble, which I know that since we're working online is easy to do, but let's try to avoid being isolated in our communication with each other, huh? Okay, so before we get to those specific deliverables, we are going to have a little bit of reading this week. So your sort of textbook reading is here under media. It's this article here, 12 popular types of websites you can create. And this is it right here. It is from our friends over at HostGator. And this is not directly related to either of the projects we're working on, other than it's sort of a general read, which will go over the different categories of sort of websites that are out there, and just to sort of understand how they are broken down into categories. And so you can sort of go through this. It's a fairly easy to read article with some really good insights, some secondary linkage, which goes out to a variety of other places. And talks about sort of the generality of each type of website. Naturally, there can be cross-pollination between types of websites, and so they can serve multiple purposes. But take a little bit of time, go through this. It's a good read. And again, it is your textbook reading for the week. Okay, now back to the deliverables. Like I said, you are finishing up the historical speculative paper, part 3. So this here, of course, from the handout for that, and this is that very first project we cited at the beginning of the semester. So this is the last deliverable, presentation of findings, and even though it's the last deliverable, it's actually 2 deliverables in one. You are going to be turning in your written paper, right? And the specifications for that are right down here. It is a 3-page paper, approximately 1,500 word minimum, 1-inch margin all the way around. Obviously, you're going to do it in some desktop publishing software, Word, Google Doc, Apple Pages, etc. And we're going to look at an example of that now. So this here is that example that I showed you guys earlier of somebody's final paper. So remember, it's about 3 pages, 1,500 word minimum. Make sure that you follow the class writing guidelines. Make sure that you put your name and date and class at the top, as well as the name of the deliverable, part 3, and most importantly, restate your inquiry question at the top. Now, the major purpose of this paper, of course, now that you've done all of your research, you've read through all of your research, you've taken notes, you are sort of a mini expert on the subject at this point, is in your own words, through the research that you've done, you are going to try to attempt to answer the question that you posed at the beginning of the project. And so using sort of your educated opinion now based on your research, you are going to answer this question to the best of your ability in these 3 pages. Now, of course, if it goes over 3 pages, that's fine too. If you have more to say, make sure that you get your points across and you are clear and you structure your paper well. If you use quotes from your research, which of course you should, be sure to put them in quotes, be sure to cite them, and create either footnotes or endnotes It doesn't matter to me which format you use, but make sure that you are citing your sources properly, okay? So get that paper written, have that turned in, and then the second part of the deliverable is the visual poster part of it, which is really just sort of a cover page for your paper. And you can turn this in separately, or you can add it as an actual first page to your Word document. So that's the digital poster part, right? And just to be clear on the sizing, it's 3,000 by 3,000 pixels max on one length. And this means that it doesn't have to be a square. It doesn't have to be 3,000 by 3,000. It could be 2,000 pixels by 3,000 pixels, or 1,500 pixels by 2,500 pixels, or whatever. It could be horizontal or vertical. All I'm saying here is that it can't be any longer on one side than 3,000 pixels, okay? Does that make sense? And you can do this in any software that you are comfortable with. Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, even Adobe Spark. Does not matter to me. Whatever you're comfortable with, you are doing an interpretive version of this sort of cover poster. And of course, the directions are up here. Talks about the type of media that you can use, the impact and intent of the cover image, and what your design is all about. So be sure to read through this as well. Hopefully by now you already have some ideas for your digital poster and you've started thinking about it. And again, this is just sort of an opportunity to be a little more open and creative with your last deliverable, since everything we've done up to this point on the historical speculative paper has been really well planned out. So here you can sort of freeform a little bit and just have some fun with it. And so here's an example of one that same student did for the paper I just showed you. This is the cover art that they created. So it's a composite image, right? So you can do whatever you are comfortable with. Have some fun with it and make it fun and creative. Okay, so the other thing, of course, we're turning in this week is the second deliverable for Project 1, which is the real-life redesign. Now, you guys have been working on this. You chose a website that already exists out in the world that is in serious need of an overhaul. You did a really good analysis of why it needs to be overhauled, and you did a needs analysis and put together your first deliverable that included some sketches and a whole bunch of research. So now we're going to get into the second deliverable, and if we take a look at our web design project workflow, which we use for all of our projects, we are hopping into the second deliverable here, which includes your wireframe images as well as your usability testing report. So which means, of course, you had to have created your wireframes and go out and do some usability testing, right? Now, to be specific, if we scroll down here, this is the description for the stuff that is included in deliverable 2, right? So your wireframes, based on your best sketches from deliverable 1, you're going to create a set of wireframe drawings, and you can use either Adobe Illustrator or do them by hand on graph or dot paper using pencil and ruler. They have to be neat and detailed with 1 page per artboard or piece of paper. Those, of course, are then to be printed out or copied and put in front of a couple of people and used for your usability testing. Okay. Now, of course, given that we are working remotely, if you can't put them in front of people physically, I am fine with you emailing them to people and having them do the set of commands that you want them to follow. In your usability testing, they can do it remotely. That's fine too. However you want to set it up works out fine with me. And of course, for the usability testing, you have to follow the guidelines in the usability testing handout, which was introduced in week 3, along with the wireframe handout. So this here is the wireframe handout, wireframe mockups, right? So you can find this back in the week 3 module, right? We went over this a couple of times already. Different ways to make wireframes. These are all hand-drawn examples, but of course you are welcome to do them digitally in Illustrator if you would like. But they are simple representations of each page of the website using simple shapes, dummy type, lines, curves, etc., etc. And then with that set, you're going to follow this handout here. This is the What is Usability Testing handout, which goes through the steps you need to follow to do a basic usability testing situation. We talked about how in real life these are done with dozens of people, but here we're just going to do a couple of people, just a couple of people that you can that are nice enough to help you out with this, okay? So be sure to follow these steps. Now, you might have already had these things already done. Maybe you're ahead of the curve, so that's good. Go ahead and make sure that you can upload all of them. Naturally, if you are working with paper wireframes, you're going to have to scan them or photograph them so that you can digitally upload them as part of your deliverable 2 package, right? Make sure that if you do have to photograph them, that you have good lighting. Maybe take them outside on a sunny day. Stand as directly over them as you can so we get a nice clear shot. So, do your best to get some good clear photographs. If you own a scanner, that's even better. Then you can scan them and we'll be able to see them nice and clear. But either way, do your best to make sure that they are clear and understandable. Okay, so that is it for this week. So again, by the end of the week, by Friday, end of day, you have to turn in part 3 of the historical speculative paper and deliverable 2 of project 1. So it's a lot to get done this week, which is why I didn't really introduce anything new this week for you to work on, other than that short article to read just for some textbook reading. So really, it's a matter of finishing up these important deliverables. After this week, of course, we'll be done with the historical speculative paper. And then we're going to start the design phase of Project 1, which will eat up a good amount of time, and we'll go from there. Okay, if you have any questions, thoughts, or concerns, be sure to email me. Drop into the Zoom office hours on Mondays or Fridays. I'll be there to help you out. And have a good day, and go be productive. Talk to you soon.